Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Joseph Lopez. Let's take a look at the headlines. The Prime Minister opens new NEDCO branch in Penal. The Tourism Development Company welcomes 4 new board members. And in sport, the race for the TT Pro League gets a little closer. In our top story, Prime Minister the Honourable Kamla Persad-Bissessor was on hand for the opening of a new office of the National Entrepreneurship Development Company in South Trinidad. Speaking at the opening ceremony, Mrs. Persad-Bissessor also made a plea to the nation to protect the youth of this nation from crime.
The opening of the 10th NEDCO office is an indication of the emphasis being placed on the development and nurturing of entrepreneurial spirit. This is the message being delivered by Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessor as NEDCO opened an office at Bupsing Trace in Penal. Mrs. Persad-Bissessor says the opening signals something even larger.
We celebrate not only the milestone of the opening of this, the 10th branch of NEDCO, but we are also, I believe, doing something far more significant. We are establishing the first community empowerment through Enterprise Development Center, a community-based business incubator. And more so, I anticipate that today's launch has the potential to help stimulate our economy by encouraging and supporting entrepreneurial initiative and innovation.
Mrs. Persad-Bissessor says the government recognizes the important role that entrepreneurial activity plays in the diversification of the economy. Hence, she emphasizes the importance of encouraging entrepreneurship at every level.
More specifically, at the micro and small enterprise level, as this is a sector typically which accounts for more than 90% of all businesses in our country. So, whilst we think it is the big business, yes, that generates the revenue, 90% of businesses are in fact in the small and micro enterprise sector.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister took the opportunity to issue a plea to the nation to guard young people from crime. More so, she is calling on the various social outreach organizations and government departments to be informed so they can better reach out to at-risk families and children.
We're losing too many of our citizens, particularly our young people, our young sons and daughters, to the scourge of crime, both as victims and also some of them as perpetrators. With the opportunities that are now available in our country, including options like the Cyprus program, we must, as individuals, communities, and as a nation, channel the energies and talents of our young people to more positive and productive pursuits. And so I call on the social sector ministries to work together to help stem the rising tide of violence, become aware of the projects offered by fellow ministries, recommend to children and families at risk the programs which should provide avenues for self-development.
Mrs. Persad-Bissessor says this is another reason why entrepreneurship is being encouraged, as it provides opportunities for young people which can save our children from the scourge of crime.
Our young people are very clever and talented. Their astuteness should not be wasted on criminal activity. We need innovators in the creative arts, in wellness, in recycling, in mobile applications, in ecotourism, fashion, food, agro-processing, marine and fishing, light engineering, electronics, in almost every field of human endeavor. The list will go on. And so we must not continue to lose our young people to crime. They are the hope and future of our nation. And my government will continue to take all necessary measures to ensure the safety, the peace and security of our country. Before I close, I ask you to lend your hands and your hearts in that which is the greatest enterprise that we can ever embark upon. And that enterprise must be to save our children.
Gregory McBurney, News 4.
The Communications Minister speaks on how the recently concluded Barbados general election shows how serving the people should be the premise for any government.
Following the victory of Prime Minister Fruandel Stewart at the recently held Barbados general elections and the extending of congratulations to Prime Minister Stewart on behalf of the government and people of Trinidad and Tobago, Minister of Communication, Senator the Honorable Jamal Mohammed, believes both countries will continue to build a strong mutual relationship.
We have always maintained excellent relations with the people, the government and people of Barbados. We have grown accustomed to Prime Minister Stewart, so I can only see us building on what is already a very productive relationship.
In his victory speech, Prime Minister Stewart stated that his party's victory was as a result of the policies and programs that were put in place for the people of the island, something the People's Partnership government intends to maintain.
That's a lesson for all governments to take note, that when you touch and you impact the people and their lives, and whatever policies you implement, it affects their lives and improve the quality of the lives of the people. I'm sure they will respond positively to that, as they did in Barbados.
Another aspect of the Barbados 2013 general election that is of note was the polls and public figures in the lead-up that claimed the Democratic Labour Party was not set to emerge victorious. In Trinidad and Tobago, similar polls showed recently that the People's Partnership government was losing favour among the people. However, Prime Minister the Honourable Kamla Persad-Bissessar responded to these claims, and the Minister of Communication says he sees it as a means of keeping the government on its toes.
You see, all of those figures you're quoting are polls, snapshots in a moment of time. And with the passage of time, those messages could change. So things can go better, things can get better, things can improve for the better. And we have to work very hard. All of those polls you spoke about in Trinidad and Tobago, it sends one clear message to this government here in our country that we have to redouble our efforts and reorganize ourselves and make sure we continue to work for and on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
The Honourable Minister congratulated Prime Minister Stewart for leading his country in these difficult times of global crisis and still capturing the imagination of his people, which ensured they vote him back into office. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
After the break, the Tourism Development Corporation has a new board. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Tourism Development Company Limited has welcomed 4 new persons to sit on its board. This move is expected to further strengthen the board's ability to fulfill its mandate by stimulating the local tourism sector in a global context.
4 new faces have joined the board of the Tourism Development Company Limited. On Friday, Minister of Tourism, the Honourable Stephen Cadiz, presented the new members with their instruments of appointment at the Hyatt Regency. They are former ETEC chairman Mr. Brian Fontaine, who will now sit as the TDC's board's chairman, cricketer Darren Ganga, Ms. Mahadevi Tilokchan, and Mr. Nadu Powder. Minister Cadiz spoke about the current status of tourism around the world and what it means to Trinidad and Tobago.
Today's business climate, ladies and gentlemen, represents many new challenges for the tourism sector. The value-conscious consumers are spoilt for choice. In international source markets, we have witnessed the consolidation of the trade. There's more online travel buying, and the fight for market share is vicious as traditional markets struggle for economic survival. And in our own warm weather climate, own warm weather destination here in Trinidad and Tobago, look at the competition we have. We have 35 different destinations in the Caribbean and within the region, 35. You have Cuba coming on to the market over the last couple of years, going guns. I mean, we really have competition. This is more competition than Hilo have and hardware stores in Trinidad have, all right? So, I mean, we have to be at the top of our game somehow, and we have to get there immediately. There's no dilly-dallying about this thing. We can't wait for the next 5 years to become the #1 warm weather destination. This is something that has to happen immediately because the other guys are going after it.
Minister Cadiz says a new approach has to be taken in marketing and promoting Trinidad and Tobago. He is, however, confident that this country will soon be on the right track in terms of its tourism.
We have to have a destination marketing and branding because I think for decades we've been Trinidad and Tobago, but for decades we have never really hit it right as to what this destination actually is. And I think with the drive that we have now and the enthusiasm that I see, that we will in fact find that.
The Honourable Minister says his goal for 2013 is to attract 500,000 persons to this country during the year, as he expects the board and other stakeholders to take a going out there and sell approach. Former Miss Trinidad and Tobago and Miss Universe Janelle Penny Kamisiang Chow will retain her title as Deputy Chairman of the board, along with other members Dayanand Maharaj, Cheryl Dubé Tiwari, Feroza Khan Abdul, Ryan De Archie, Premanand Badalu, and Carol Ann Birchwood James. Renowned cricketer Brian Lara was also announced as the Tourism Ambassador, which is an addition to his title of Sports Ambassador. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
Meanwhile, Deputy Chairman of the TDC Board, Janelle Penny Kamisiang Chow, is committed to seeing Trinidad and Tobago marketed as a tourism destination. This as she retained her position on the board for yet another term.
A new board of the Tourism Development Company Limited was recently installed, while some key members were retained. One such member is former Miss Universe Janelle Penny Kamisiang Chow, who sits as Deputy Chairman. Mrs. Kamisiang Chow believes that Trinidad and Tobago has a lot to offer to the world in terms of tourism, and she is committed to seeing both islands receive the recognition it deserves.
Well, I think having spent a year on the board of TDC, it gave me an opportunity to see things that I did not see before. And now I recognize that we have a bit of everything. We have the ecotourism, we certainly have the beaches via Tobago, we definitely have the culture through Carnival and other times of the year, and also, you know, the different products that come out of Carnival. So I think we have a lot to offer. There are a few areas we're a little weak on, for instance, historical tourism. But it's something I'm quite sure the board is going to be looking at. So I think overall we're good. We've got a little more than some of the other islands because we're not just some sun and sand and beach.
She was then asked to identify a project under the board that she's most passionate about seeing come to fruition.
I think what I would like to see come through is the ministry had started a little campaign called Tourism is Key, and I think that is important, getting the public of Trinidad and Tobago on board with tourism, understanding it and recognizing how viable and valuable it is to the economy and how it trickles down to everyone. So that is something I would like to see us embrace, getting that tourism message out to John public. That's very important.
Over the next 5 months, Trinidad and Tobago will be host to 3 major tourism conferences, which include the Caribbean Tourism Organization's 14th Annual Caribbean Conference on Sustainable Tourism Development, the 17th Annual Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Investment Conference, and the Travel Professionals of Color Conference. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
The Chaguanas Carnival Committee distributed prizes to its winners of this year's carnival events at Gaston Court Chaguanas. Chaguanas West MP Jack Warner was among those attending the function and revealed that for Carnival 2014, he is going to produce a carnival band. It was a significant occasion for band leaders, masqueraders and performers as they were rewarded for their participation in the carnival celebrations held in central Trinidad.
It is important for us to reflect, however briefly, on the season that just went. And though I know there's a video that does this in ways I can't ever hope to compete with, I think it's important for us to realize a few things. In the first case, we continue to be proud of the fact that we left Ramsaran Street and have now come to the Chaguanas Main Road. And because of that, we saw this year crowds far in excess of 25,000 people on one particular morning.
Minister Warner says despite the large masses, the celebrations were safe and noted that there were no major incidents. He also sought to make some important pronouncements that he believes will pave the way for a bigger and better Carnival 2014.
I said to the committee, I said to councillors, that the time has come for us to take grip of our own Carnival. I have made the point to the councillors that we must become involved. And I've said that I will begin to do what I will ask others to do, but I must do it first. And therefore I made the point, and some people think was jokingly this year, but I made the point that next year I shall produce a carnival band.
Minister Warner says the carnival band will be the largest ever to hit the streets of central Trinidad.
There will be no band fee for that band. That band will not be entering any competition as such, but that band will be giving people the kind of fun and gaiety and laughter that the borough deserves. We must never depend on others to give us merriment in our carnival. We must never look again at our watches and say, they come in, Tears Village or not, Couva or not, they come back in traffic, and hope and pray that somehow they appear.
The Chaguanas West MP says that each councillor for the Chaguanas Bar must produce a carnival band for his or her electoral district. Added to that, he says, they will be given assistance and incentives that will encourage an enormous participation. Minister Warner congratulated the Chaguanas Carnival Committee and the Mayor of Chaguanas for their hard work and dedication throughout the season. The prize distribution exercise began at 5 p.m. and the official results were announced and released. The program also included DVD highlights of Carnival 2013 and entertainment by blacks. Up next, some TT Pro League weekend roundup. Stay with us. Welcome back. Just as it seems that the Defence Force Football Club was crushing to the TT Pro League title, Russ Russell and his men dropped some vital points and reopened the race. Here's Wayne Cunningham with the scores from the weekend.
The most interesting result on match day 7 of round 2 in the TT Pro League was a draw between first place Defence Force and TN-Tech, who occupied the bottom spot on the standings. The military men scored as early as the 14th minute through their prolific striker Devon Jostling. But following that, they gradually went into casual mode and paid the price. Glenn Sutton equalizing to give the Electricity Boys only their 5th point of the season, which helped morale, but not their position on the points table. The Army also kept its position, but second place Caledonia AIA made up ground with a 4-2 win over St. Anne's Rangers. The game was not as one-sided as the score suggests, because it was a close battle until late in the second half, when national midfielder Keon Edward stepped up and showed his class. Akim Armstrong opened the scoring for AIA in the 38th minute. That was cancelled out 5 minutes into the second half by Kiefer Ford Edwards. Keon Edwards then retook the lead for Cali in the 65th, but Rangers drew level again through their soca warrior Devon Modest. Keon then put the game away for good with an 81st minute item. The scoring was completed just before the final whistle by Sheldon Holer. The win took the Mova Laventil squad to 29 points, 4 behind the leaders. Third place W Connection FC also won handsomely, putting a 5-2 drubbing on Police FC. Joven Jones continued to make a name for himself as he scored a hat-trick for the Savanetta boys with goals in the 37th, 40th and 80th minutes. Hashim Arcia and Andre Pacheco were the other scorers for Stuart Charles Furvier's men. While Richard Hurd's team got their goals from Jamil Perry and Elijah Belgrave. The loss keeping the lawmen in 6th spot. They are a massive 8 points behind 5th place Central FC, who has gotten into stride under new coach Terry Fenwick. The Sharks faced Northeast Stars and fell behind after a corner Glen goal in the 25th minute. 2 other Pro League veterans then put their names on the score sheet and secured the win for Central FC. The man they called the Big Tread, Marvin Oliver, was once again hitting the back of the net with a 35th minute item. 2 minutes later, Jason McCarno scored what turned out to be the winner. The loss keeping the team from Sandy Grande in 4th spot. Action in the Pro League continues on Wednesday at the Atto Boland Stadium in Couva with a rescheduled clash between Police FC and St. Anne's Rangers at 6 p.m. Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
When we return, Pan Trinbago celebrates its 50th anniversary. Stay with us. Welcome back. Pan Trinbago, in celebrating its 50th anniversary, paid tribute to some of Trinidad and Tobago's outstanding arrangers, tuners and steel bands in the Gala Awards ceremony at Cascadia Hotel in St. Anne's. It was 50 years ago to the very day that the preliminaries of the first panorama was held with 42 steel pans. Today, 12 of these steel bands still participate in Panorama every year at Carnival. They are Casablanca, City Kids, Desperados, Hatters, Invaders, Our Boys, Pan North Stars, winners of the first Panorama, Meritones, Renegades, Starlift, and San Juan All-Stars. Special awards were given to Aldwin Lord Kitchener-Roberts, Rudolph Charles, and George Goddard. President of Pan Trinbago Keith Diaz revealed that in 1963, the first prize for Panorama was just $150, and then it was increased to $1,000 to lure the big-name steel bands to the competition. He says it was a period when the prize money was incredibly low, and the Carnival Development Committee of the day played a major role in deciding the fortunes of the steel bands during Carnival.
But at this time, we have much to shout about. It is often said that if you do not know where you came from, you would have little appreciation for where you are going. So in that context, there is ever proper reason to look back and understand how and why we have to travel along the road which we did with a sense of pride and satisfaction.
In delivering the feature address, Minister of the Arts and Multiculturalism, Dr. the Honorable Lincoln Douglas, says the onus was on everyone to safeguard the legacy of the steel pan and ensure that it was taken to the highest level.
We have played pan. As a matter of fact, long time we used to say, you're beating pan. We don't beat pan no more, right? We play in pan, right? That's what we do. And so we're taking it to the next level where we are indeed international, professional musicians.
Minister Douglas says the prize monies for Panorama had been increased by $100,000, which showed that government was committed to the steel pan and ensuring that it made bold strides, not only locally, but internationally. However, the minister says government could not do it alone and called on the corporate sector and private citizens to support the Pan fraternity. Story brings us to the end of our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Joseph Lopez. Thank you for watching.